Hello and welcome to our session today. Today we are looking at the calcium antagonist, calcium channel blockers. These drugs simply work by blocking the L-type calcium channels in the vascular muscle or the cardiac myocytes and even the cardiac nodal tissues. And the cardiac nodal tissues, we are simply talking about the senior arterial node and the AV node. Perhaps you need to be trying to project what will be the probable effects of these drugs based on their targets. So when calcium channels are blocked in these areas, they'll result into decrease in contraction of the cells, right? So the smooth muscles are going to relax. And also they are going to provide some kind of vasodilation. Also, when the cardiac nodal tissues are targeted, it means that they are going to relax, and this is going to result in decrease in heart rate, decrease in strength of heart contractions. So primarily, these drugs are used to treat cardiac arrhythmias because they do target the heart, hypertension because they target the blood vessels in addition to the heart, and lastly also because they target the blood vessels, we can also use in treatment of angina pectoralis. To a lesser extent, these also calcium channel blockers can be used as a prophylaxis against the migraines and also treatment of the Raynaud phenomena. Raynaud phenomena is a condition where there is reduced blood flow to the tiny peripheral vessels. I hope you remember that. Lastly, calcium channel blockers can also be used to relax the uterine smooth muscles. And this effect is very key in maternity, where you find that this will prevent premature uterine contraction and thus can help delay preterm labor. Okay? All right, guys. In terms of administration, these drugs can be administered either orally or intravenously. And based on these drugs can also be grouped into two different groups. We have those ones that we refer to them as the dihydropyridines and the non-dihydropyridines. So the dihydropyridines will include drugs like amlodipine, the nicardipine, nifedipine, felodipine, and clevipine. Okay, these drugs, they have more potent action on blood vessels, specifically the arterioles where they do the dilation, than the heart. And therefore, based on this mechanism of action, dihydropyridines are preferred for treatment of hypertensions. We have a unique dihydropyridine in the name of nimodipine drug. So this nimodipine drug, it has an added benefit in that it's able to cross the blood-brain barrier. Thus, this drug is normally used to prevent and treat the cerebral vasospasms, right, in the brain, okay? Also, we have the non-hydropyridines, and these drugs include examples like the verapamil and diltiazem hydrochloride. So these drugs, they have a potent action on the heart as opposed to the dihydropyridines, which normally work mainly on the blood vessels. As a result, these drugs can be used to treat arrhythmias and angina pectoralis, all right? Like the first drug where we refer to it as verapamil, this drug is highly selective for cardiac calcium channels, all right? Although it's associated with gingival hyperplasia. So this verapamil normally decreases the contractility of the heart muscles. And when this happens, it will decrease the strength of heart contractions, and therefore we say verapamil has a negative inotropic effect because of the reduced strength of heart contraction, right? Verapamil also decreases the contraction of the nodal tissues, specifically the senior arterial node and the AV node. And as you know, these are the ones that normally controls the heart rate, especially the SA, which is the pacemaker, right? So you find that when this is decreased, it is going to lead to a corresponding decrease in the heart rate. And this is what is referred to as the negative chronotropic effect. Additionally, Norepinephrine can also decrease the AV node, that is the gatekeeper, okay? Decrease the conduction of those impulses at this point, and this reduction in the conduction will lead to a decrease in the dromotropic effects, okay? And thus we refer to as a reduction in conduction of impulses as these drugs having a negative dromotropic effect. All right. The second drug example under the non-dihydropyridine is diltiazem hydrochloride with a half-life of about 3 to 9 hours. This drug is equally good at blocking both cardiac and vascular calcium channels. Thus, the drug will be effective in treatment of hypertension and also arrhythmias. This diltiazem is used to treat these arrhythmias such as the supraventricular tachycardia, atrial fibrillation. Guys, a link will be popping up on the different types of arrhythmias in the ECG. You can actually look at it and see the different treatment for each case, right? Apart from the arrhythmias, diltiazem can also be used to treat hypertension and angina because of the effect on the blood vessels. Remember, this drug is contraindicated if a patient has a bradycardia or a second or third AV block. Okay, this is because this medication normally decreases the function of the AC and the AV node, which is advantageous if we have AFib with rapid ventricular response in that case. However, if there is a second degree AV block presenting or bradycardia, the SA and the AV nodes will not be working properly, and this condition could further impede their function. So once these drugs have been administered, they will block the voltage gated channels here. Okay, so calcium is produced here, right? So it's supposed to go through the channel so that it can be able to get into the cytosol of a cell. But when you use a calcium channel blocker, this pathway is blocked, so this drug is not able to get into the cytosol of the cell. So this drug will work by decreasing the amount of calcium getting into the cell. You know, calcium is very key, as you all know, because it's normally required for the contraction of both cardiac muscles and the vascular smooth muscle. So reduction of the calcium normally reduces the muscle ability to contract, ultimately resulting into relaxation. Okay, and this relaxation is particularly observed in the arterioles and the smooth muscles, which normally help reduce the blood pressure and also the peripheral vascular resistance, or simply put, the afterload. You know, afterload is that just that pressure that the heart must work against in order to eject blood. All right. So target points majorly for these calcium channel blockers are the cardiac tissues, okay? Remember, starting with the coronary arteries that do supply the heart. These calcium channel blockers normally relaxes those vessels, and this will improve the oxygen delivery to those muscles. And that's why it's normally used in treatment of angina, okay? Further, they also reduce the force of contraction of the cardiac muscles and also reduce the oxygen demand for the heart. So we normally say that these drugs have a negative ionotropic effect. Calcium channel blockers also prevent the depolarization of the cardiac pacemaker cells in the SA and the AV node, and this is responsible, these nodes are normally responsible for generating and maintaining the heart rate. So that effect, we normally have the negative chronotropic effect. Lastly, this medication also reduces the firing and the conduction of the impulses through this node, so that we have now slowed conduction, okay, eventually decreasing also the heart rate, and this is also referred to as negative dromotropic effect. So blocking of this L-type channel will always target several things, including the blood vessels and smooth muscles in the blood vessels, which normally reduces the tone, and it could even result into hypertension. Also the heart, of course, reducing the heart rate, the contraction, the conduction, resulting into reduced heart rate, that is what we refer to as bradycardia, and also endocrine cells like the pancreas, for example. So this is normal result into decreased insulin release, and this could predispose someone to hyperglycemia. Besides, it also has an effect on the skeletal muscles, and this is not so prominent like the other ones. All right. So in general, although these calcium channel blockers are so effective in managing hypertension, especially in the black population, right, it also comes up with some effects that and these side effects are very challenging also to manage. So that's how you should be able to look at it. For example, the vasodilatory effect of these calcium channel blockers will result into symptoms like headache, we have dizziness, we have flushing of the skin, peripheral edema, hypotension, and this is more common with the dihydropyridines like the nifedipine, amlodipine. All right. Hypotension can also trigger what we refer as the reflex tachycardia. In the case of hypotension, where there is less blood to be supplied oxygen to the rest of the body tissues, the body can respond by having this reflex tachycardia, okay? And this reflex tachycardia is meant to maintain the adequate tissue perfusion. So all these, the patient should be talked about so that they are aware. Equally, the dihydropyridines can also cause gingival hyperplasia, especially the verapamil, okay? And they do this by promoting the proliferation of gingival fibroblasts while altering collagen metabolism, and this leads to excessive growth of this gum tissue. Also, there is also a potential for elevated intraocular pressure, and this becomes a risk factor for glaucoma. All right. Okay, what about for the non-dihydropyridines? These ones, they have a major effect on the heart, whereby they decrease the heart rate, the contractility, so they can cause conditions like bradycardia, and this is done by inhibiting the sinoatrial node pacemaker activity and delaying the atrioventricular node conduction. Also, they could result in constipation where there is smooth muscle relaxation in the GIT, and this could lead to slowed transit time for that case. And lastly, we have the hyperprolactemia, and this will result from their interference with the dopamine receptors in the pituitary gland and disrupting the inhibition of the prolactin secretion. These drugs are also contraindicated in a number of conditions. So you find that due to their depressive effect on the heart, you find the dihydropyridines, and to a lesser extent the dihydropyridines will be contraindicated in patients with the bradycardia, with heart blocks, and even heart failure. Calcium channel blockers should be used in caution in patients who are having hepatic or renal diseases. Also, those with concomitant use with digoxin, you have to monitor for signs such as nausea, vomiting, vision changes, seeing the green and the yellow halos around lights, okay? Because these glands can easily develop digoxin toxicity. Remember, the normal range for digoxin toxicity is between 0.5 to 2 nanograms per mil, okay? And that becomes the normal ranges. There are some foods that you need to avoid when you're using these drugs because they could cause toxicity, all right? Drugs like grapefruit and grape juice, okay? And also caffeine should be avoided for that particular matter. When managing this patient, you are supposed to obtain baseline heart rate and blood pressure because this will help at least getting doing the thorough baseline assessment for this particular patient that can be used to compare and evaluate the effectiveness of the regimen. Also, you have to review lab results so that you look at the CBC, the sodium, the potassium, the creatinine, the burn, the liver enzymes, the urinalysis, the ECG, and this should just be able to ensure that there is safe administration of drugs. So if a patient is taking a calcium channel blocker for angina pectoralis, you as a nurse, you have to ask about the frequency and also the severity of angina symptoms so as to evaluate properly. In terms of patient education, you have to tell the patient that you have to ensure that the patient understand how this medication works to controlling symptoms, okay, blocking the L-type calcium channels. All right. Also, you have to tell the patient to take the medication exactly as instructed and not to stop them abruptly, okay? Because this could cause the rebound hypertension and also complicate the management. Calcium channel blocker should be taken with or without food. That is what the patient need to know. But for the extended release tablet, they should not be crushed. Neither should they be divided nor chewed, okay? In addition, you have to avoid grapefruit as we had indicated, because this can lead to unnecessary toxicity. You also have to take and educate the patient how to take the pulse and the BP, and you have to contact the patient if they experience hypertension or the blood bradycardia. If they are using calcium channel blockers for angina, you should seek medical assistance immediately if they experience angina that is not relieved by rest or medication. You also have to reinforce the cardiovascular health promotion, like teach the patient about lifestyle modification that help maintain the body weight in that case. Okay, guys, the link will be popping up on the BMI ranges. You should be able to monitor yours to see how best it is for that case. Also, you have to encourage patient to stop smoking, also to reduce this alcohol or sodium intake, and finally increase physical activity for that matter. When these patients experience side effects, okay, they have to know how to manage them, okay. So if the patients know that the patient actually, they are supposed to be told that they'll be experiencing some of these side effects like the dizziness, hypotension, reflux, tachycardia, they are supposed to be made aware. So they should be told that they need to change position slowly to prevent falls and these orthostatic hypotensions, okay. Number two is that the vasodilatory effect of this drug could result also in peripheral edema, which is a major concern about these patients, all right? So you have to encourage this patient to keep on elevating their legs for a few hours each day. Thirdly, you're also supposed to talk to them about the risk of developing hypertension, because relaxation of smooth muscles in the GIT could also result in such symptom. So you have to remind the patient to try and increase their daily intake of fluids and also take a diet rich in fiber. Guys, a link will be popping up on the different diets for different patients. Lastly, you also need to talk about gingival hyperplasia, the one that is associated mainly with verapamil. So you have to stress on the importance of good dental hygiene to try and prevent this. So in monitoring this patient, you have to ensure that you are looking at their BP, blood pressure, their heart rate, and also the angina symptoms, also just to assess the therapeutic effects of this medication. Remember, you have to continue to monitor the side effects and report these changes to the healthcare provider in that case. Remember, you have to tell the patient that the maximum antihypertensive effect can only be seen after the 14 days. Okay, so it takes around 14 days or so, at least, for you to start seeing the effect of this antihypertensive effect. So if you are taking this drug and you find that the systolic BP is below 90 or the heart rate is below 60 beats per minute, you need to withhold the dose and you notify the prescriber for that case. All right. So guys, thank you so much for listening to us. It has been a pleasure presenting this one to you guys. We are looking at the calcium channel blockers, okay? Calcium antagonists for that case. And in this case, we have said the diltiazem hydrochloride is our prodrug. Guys, please go to the description section of this video and attempt the quiz that has been attached there, okay? Find it, comment it on the video, like our video, and share with others, all right? Thank you so much and see you again.